I woke to the thunder of a moving truck in my driveway and to my son Ryan shouting, "We're here," like I'd invited him. That's the twist. He'd sold his house, handed his wife Megan $700,000 to live a little, and decided my place was their landing pad. Before I tell you what I did on that porch, please subscribe, tap like, and drop a comment with your local time. Your notes keep this channel going. I tightened my robe, opened the deadbolt, and found Ryan smiling the way he did in high school when charm outweighed homework. Megan stood behind him with a suitcase and sunglasses though the sky was cloudy. "Since we closed yesterday, we brought the essentials," Ryan said, waving toward the truck. "Temporary stop. Few months." I didn't agree, I said, planting my feet. "Dad, don't be difficult," Megan chimed in. "Family supports family." Across the street, Carl Johnson lifted his paper. Doris Miller's curtains stirred. Eyes gathered like moths to a porch light. "You already spent the money?" I asked. Ryan laughed. "Invested in life. Reliable car, experiences. We'll find housing later. And the $300,000 I lent you for the down payment. Where is that?" He shifted. "You didn't lend it. You gave it. Don't rewrite history just because you're lonely." Mary's photo looked down from the hall table behind me. "Move your suitcase off my step," I said. Ryan nudged forward. I didn't budge. "You chose to sell. You chose to spend. You don't get to choose my house." Megan's smile snapped. "You have 4 bedrooms, and you live alone," she hissed. "What are you hoarding space for? Memories?" "Boundaries," I said. "Not for sale." "Be reasonable," Ryan said. "We help. We cook. You won't even notice us." "I noticed you decided without me. Take the truck and go." The cold morning made every word hang like smoke. Carl set down his paper. Doris opened her door an inch. Megan stepped closer, perfume sharp. "You're making a scene. Open the door. Right now." "No." Silence, thin and buzzing. Ryan tried softer. "I know you miss Mom. Let us be here. It's the humane thing." "Respect is the humane thing," I said. "Leave. After everything we've sacrificed?" Megan flared. "You sold your house yesterday. That's choice, not sacrifice." Her hand flashed. The slap cracked across the porch, bright and humiliating. A dog 2 doors down barked. I tasted copper and didn't move. Carl gasped. Doris's door opened wide. A phone rose in her hand. Ryan grabbed Megan's wrist, but said nothing to me. He looked stunned that I still filled the doorway. "Get off my property," I said. Each word tightened like a bolt. "You'll need us someday," Ryan said. "Remember this." "I will. Now go." The truck coughed alive. Boxes thudded. Ryan steered Megan to the car. She glared at the neighbors, chin high, as if daring the block to judge her. The convoy rolled away, exhaust hanging like a torn curtain. I stood until the air cleared. Carl crossed over. "You all right, Frank?" "I am," I said, though my cheek burned. "Did you see?" "Every second," he said. "So did Doris. So did half the street." Doris called. "If you need a statement, I've got a video." I nodded. Oddly, I didn't need the doorframe for balance. The worst part wasn't the sting. It was realizing how quickly entitlement feeds on kindness. Inside, the house exhaled its familiar creaks. I set a glass of water on the counter and watched the surface settle. Mary's eyes in the frame held their patient spark. I pulled open the old roll-top desk. The drawer stuck. I nudged and it gave. Folders slid forward. Taxes, insurance, the unglamorous records that prove a life is not a rumor. I laid them out and listened. A car passed. A child laughed. A truck beeped in reverse somewhere behind the pines. Normal life, perfectly indifferent. I breathed to 5, then again. My cheek throbbed less. The silence took shape. It wasn't empty. It was choosing. I thought of Ryan as a boy after Little League. Hair damp, eyes searching my face for approval. Somewhere applause replaced responsibility. I let that happen. I let charm pass for character because it was easier than conflict. I wrote today's date on a yellow pad. The ink made a confident scratch. I wasn't sure what came next. I only knew doorways had to mean something. Porches were borders, and love without boundaries is an invitation to be robbed in daylight. The phone buzzed by the sink. A text from Ryan. "We'll swing back after lunch when you've cooled off." I stared until the screen dimmed, set the phone face down, and let the room return to itself. Outside, late morning brightened. I pressed a cool spoon to my cheek and looked at Mary's picture. "I hear you," I told the quiet. "I finally do." The pine scent drifted through the screen and steadied me. Carl said he'd vouch for what he saw. Doris raised her phone and promised the same. I thanked them, closed the door, and let the quiet settle as snow. Ryan's message sat on my phone like a dare, a reminder that arrogance runs deep when it's never been corrected. They thought I'd fold once the neighbors disappeared into their kitchens, once the sting on my cheek faded. But humiliation doesn't fade. It sharpens. By the time the afternoon sun tilted across the street and painted the porch in gold, I had already pulled every folder from my desk. Old bank slips, the transfer records, even the copy of the cashier's check that showed $300,000 drained from my retirement account 3 years earlier. I'd made the mistake of thinking blood made paper unnecessary. I believed promises could live in air. That was before Megan's hand snapped across my face. Now, I needed something heavier than air. I sat in the study with Mary's picture looking down from the mantel. Her smile in that frame always carried amusement, as if she knew more than she ever said aloud. I could hear her voice from years ago, the way she scolded me when I let Ryan skip responsibility. You're not doing him any favors by being easy. She was right then, and she was right now. The ledger didn't lie. Ryan had taken the money as a loan. My notes from that spring day were dated, precise, written in my neat engineer's handwriting. Loan to Ryan and Megan for down payment. $300,000. Repay when able. I'd written it down because Mary told me never to trust memory alone. That note was worth more than Ryan's casual grin or Megan's silky persuasion. I poured myself coffee, bitter and too strong, but it kept my hands steady as I sorted the papers into piles. Receipts. Statements. My yellow pad with fresh notes. Evidence. That word steadied me. I wasn't a bitter old man clinging to space. I was a creditor with records, a father whose generosity had been rewritten as foolishness by his own child. Around 6, there was a knock on the door. I stiffened, ready for Ryan's entitled voice, but when I peered through the curtain, it was Carl Johnson holding 2 mugs. Brought you fresh coffee, he said. Thought you could use company. We sat on the porch while the autumn air cooled. Frank, the whole block saw it. You don't let that go. She struck you, plain as day. That's assault. Assault. I repeated quietly. Not just a slap. No jury in the country would see it as anything less, Carl said. And I'll testify if you need me. Doris got video too. She's not one to sit on evidence. The weight that had been pressing on my chest all day shifted. I wasn't alone. For once, my neighbors weren't watching from a distance. They were in it with me. After Carl left, I spread the papers across my dining table. Each sheet was another nail in the coffin of Ryan's lies. He wanted to call my money a gift, my house is right, my refusal selfish. But paper beats words. Signatures beat charm. I took out my phone, scrolled to the number I hadn't called in years. Richard Whitman, attorney at law. He'd handled the settlement when Mary passed, steady and precise. A man who never mistook kindness for weakness. I hovered over the call button, heart thudding. My reflection in the black screen showed a man older than I remembered, lines deep, eyes sharp. A man who'd had enough. I pressed call. Frank. Richard's voice came warm but edged. It's been a while. Too long, I said. I need help. Family help, but of the legal kind. Tell me everything. And so I did. I told him about the money, the sale, the truck in my driveway, the slap. His silence after I finished stretched long, professional, and dangerous. Frank, you have more than a case, he finally said. You have leverage. We'll start with a demand letter. Breach of agreement, restitution of loan, and civil action for assault. You're stronger than you think. Stronger. That word lingered as I hung up. I looked at Mary's picture again, her half-smile daring me to stop coddling and start correcting. The night pressed against the windows, but I didn't feel the dark as loneliness. It felt like a curtain before a stage. Tomorrow, the lights would rise, and Ryan would learn that generosity isn't weakness, and boundaries aren't optional. I cleared the table, stacked the folders in perfect order, and locked them in the desk drawer. The key clicked sharp and final. Upstairs, the house creaked as I climbed, but every step felt lighter, steadier. In the quiet of the bedroom, I whispered aloud, Mary, I'm finally listening. And I slept without tossing, without dread, with only the certainty that tomorrow would not find me passive, not anymore. Morning came with the sound of the mail slot clattering. I padded downstairs, robe tied tight, and found a thick envelope with Richard Whitman's return address stamped clean in blue. Demand letter, he'd said. Formal, Professional, undeniable. I held it like a weapon. The weight of it steadied me more than any breakfast could. I brewed coffee, black and strong, and set the envelope beside Mary's photo on the mantel. Her eyes seemed to twinkle, as if she knew justice had a shape and it looked like paperwork. By 10 o'clock, I'd already called Richard. Delivered to his address today, he confirmed. Certified mail. He'll have 10 days to respond before we escalate. I imagined Ryan opening that letter, his easy grin cracking, Megan at his shoulder ready to dismiss it all as bluff. They underestimated me, always had. This time, the paper was louder than words. I carried the letter around the house like a talisman, read it twice. Every phrase sharp as steel. Breach of agreement. Loan repayment. Assault and battery in front of witnesses. Those words sang like truth. Around noon, Carl knocked again. Heard from them yet? He asked, coffee mug in hand. Not yet, I said. But they'll read it today. Carl chuckled, shaking his head. Bet Megan's lipstick smears the floor when she hits it in panic. I laughed for the first time in days. The neighbors were talking. Of course they were. Doris told Carl she'd play her video in court if needed, and the Johnsons had sworn they'd testify about the porch slap. A whole street ready to stand behind me. It didn't erase the sting of betrayal, but it made the loneliness quieter. At 2:30, the phone rang. Ryan's name lit the screen. I let it buzz twice before answering. His voice came fast, sharp, desperate. Dad, what the hell is this? A demand letter? You're suing your own son. I held the receiver steady. It's not hell, Ryan. It's law. You borrowed $300,000. You sold the collateral. You owe me. And Megan struck me in front of half the neighborhood. Those are facts. He sputtered. Then Megan's voice cut through in the background, high and shrill. He won't dare. He's bluffing. He's just a lonely old man. I felt my jaw tighten. Megan, this line is recorded. Every word will live in court. The silence on the other end was sudden, as if she'd been yanked back by fear. Ryan's voice returned, lower, strained. Dad, we can talk about this. No need for lawyers. We'll pay something, just not that much. It's impossible. What's impossible, I said, is letting you walk away with my retirement because you think family means free money. You signed, Ryan. You promised. His breathing came rough, panicked. That contract doesn't mean anything. You gave us that money. Don't twist it. Samuel drafted it, I said flatly. His secretary witnessed it. It's notarized. It means everything. The pause stretched so long I thought the call had died. Then Megan screamed in the background. Tell him we'll ruin him. We'll tell everyone he's senile. My grip on the phone tightened, but my voice stayed calm. Every threat you make, every word you spew, becomes more evidence. Keep going. Click. The line went dead. I stood with the phone in my hand, my heart pounding but steady. The conversation had been shorter than I expected, yet it told me everything. Panic was setting in. They thought I'd crumble. Instead, I was documenting. Richard would love it. I sat at the desk and wrote every line Ryan had said, every insult Megan had hurled. Documentation, my shield, my sword. Evening fell. The house filled with shadows, but they felt like allies. I lit the old lamp in the study, spread the papers before me, and saw the story unfold in neat rows of ink. 3 years ago, Ryan had hugged me for helping him. Today, he threatened me for asking him to honor his word. How far he had fallen, and how far I had led him. The phone buzzed again around 8. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mr. Sanders? A clipped voice asked. This is David Morrison, counsel for your son and daughter-in-law. I'd like to discuss settlement options. My lips curved. They'd already found a lawyer. That meant they'd read Richard's letter and seen how serious it was. Mr. Morrison, I said, voice even. Any discussions will go through Richard Whitman, my attorney. I'll forward him your contact. Perhaps you'd prefer to avoid escalation, Morrison said quickly. My clients are willing to offer a partial payment plan. I didn't answer right away. Silence worked better than anger. He cleared his throat, nervous. Shall we say $50,000 up front, $2,000 monthly until satisfied? That would take 12 years, I said. I'm 68. Do you think I intend to wait until 80 to see my money again? He hesitated, caught. It's what they can afford. Then they can afford to sell the Mercedes, the jewelry, the designer furniture. They spent my money like water. They can pay it back the same way. My voice stayed calm, deliberate. Contact Richard Whitman. He'll give you the terms. Good night. I hung up without waiting for his answer. For a long moment, I sat in the quiet, only the ticking clock breaking the stillness. The man I used to be, the father who let Ryan charm his way past accountability, would have felt guilty. But guilt was gone. In its place was something harder, something steadier. Resolve. I poured myself a glass of scotch, raised it to Mary's photograph, and whispered, "You were right, love." Too long I let him walk over me. Not anymore. The amber liquid burned down my throat, but it felt like fuel. Tomorrow, Richard would get Morrison's call. Tomorrow, the battle would move from porches to offices, from whispers to filings. Tonight, I allowed myself the rarest of comforts, peace. The kind that comes when a man finally draws the line and dares his own blood to cross it. Richard's office smelled of leather, ink, and quiet judgment. I sat across from him at the polished table while papers spread between us like a battlefield map. The demand letter had done its job. Ryan's lawyer had already called, scrambling for mercy. Richard tapped the contract with a fountain pen, his tone precise. They signed. They defaulted. They owe $372,000 with interest. Add civil damages for the assault and humiliation. That's another $50,000. We'll push for $422 total. If they refuse, we go to court. Ironclad. Ironclad. The word echoed in me like steel striking an anvil. For too long, Ryan had mistaken my patience for weakness. Now the scales had shifted. That evening, the phone rang. Ryan's voice was hollow, stripped of bravado. "Dad, we accept your terms. 30 days. Behind him, I heard Megan's muffled sobs, not of regret, but of fury at losing. My silence stretched long enough to force him into discomfort. Finally, I said, "Good." He bristled. "Is that all? We're selling everything, starting over." "Appropriate consequence," I replied. "You made your choices." His voice cracked. "What about us? After this is paid, can we fix things?" I leaned back, staring at Mary's photograph on the desk. Trust isn't rebuilt with words, Ryan. It's rebuilt with years of honest actions. One at a time. Don't expect shortcuts. He muttered something bitter before hanging up, but the tone was different. The fight was gone. Over the next weeks, checks cleared, assets sold, promises suddenly kept because they had no choice. Richard called to confirm transfers. First 50,000, then 200, then the last 72 plus damages. 422,000 sat in my account. Tangible proof that even sons can't outweigh law and truth. The money mattered less than the principle. Megan wrote a brittle apology letter, words twisted through clenched teeth. "I regret my behavior on your porch," it read. "I let anger overcome respect." Hollow, but on paper nonetheless. I filed it alongside the contract. Evidence. Completion. Neighbors didn't forget, though. Carl stopped by with wine one evening. "Heard through the grapevine your boy paid up. Whole street's proud of you, Frank." Took guts. I nodded, pouring us both a glass. Doris waved from across the street, holding her phone like a badge, still proud of her recording. Even the Johnsons stopped mid-walk to clap my shoulder and say, "Justice served." It felt strange, being the subject of admiration instead of pity. For years I'd been the quiet widower in the big house. Now, I was the man who stood up, even against his own blood. In the stillness of night, I sat with Mary's picture, the contract filed away, the bank statement printed and safe. For the first time since her passing, I felt complete peace. Not because I had won, but because I had stopped losing myself. Ryan would rebuild his life brick by brick if he had the will. Megan would learn charm doesn't erase consequence. And me? I had learned that kindness without boundaries is nothing but an invitation to be trampled. That lesson was worth more than the money, more than the signatures, more than the paper in my files. One evening as the sun burned gold across the street, Carl asked me softly, "Frank, do you regret suing your own son?" I thought about it, staring at the horizon. No, I regret waiting so long to stand up. But regret is lighter than humiliation. And this house, Mary's house, remains mine. That matters. He raised his glass. To boundaries. I raised mine too. The clink rang like a church bell. Later, when the phone buzzed with Ryan's name, I let it ring. Some things no longer demanded my attention. Justice had been served, dignity restored, and peace reclaimed. For the first time in years, the silence in my house was perfect. Not emptiness, but freedom. If you've stayed with me through this story, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment telling me what time it is where you are right now. Your voices keep these stories alive.